Well, good afternoon, everybody. So, this is going to be the watch list for Monday, April 15th. And what I'm going to do is start out with the two indexes, and then we're going to look at a couple of names. One thing that you're going to want to be very cognizant of is after last week, the market had a tremendous amount of volatility. A couple reasons. One, CPI came in way hotter than projected. PPI came within line, but then what a market sell-off on Friday after the banks started to announce earnings that beat not only on their guidance, but also on their net income. But the concern is deposit costs are continuing to increase, which is eroding net interest margin. So therefore, if the Fed doesn't start lowering rates, it's clearly going to cost businesses, including financial institutions, more money to operate. So we went from possibly 6 Fed rate cuts down to 3, and now we are looking at possibly 1. That is not going to bode well for a bullish market. You could see that we had a trend line on SPY. That trend line was trending up. We have now broken. And what do we have as a result of it? We had a market high right up here. And then we have now started to make a lower high. And yet another lower high, another lower high, a lower low, and again, another new low. We're back to making lows again, and now pushing down even further. So when you have a high, a low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, we are now in a downward channel, okay? So I would not be looking to go long on this. What I would be watching is for more pressure to the downside. So let me just clear that up. If we're going to look and see if we're going to break lower, where are we headed next? Well, what I would do is I would typically look for large areas of where we had some support. So you can see that we had some support down here, at the 508 level. We're pretty much already there where we're going to have overall demand. You can see that we had a little bit of a bounce here, right? So this would be one area that I would pay attention to. And then the next one down from there, we're going to drop yet a little bit lower, going into demand. And we just kind of hovered here for several days. So if we fail this 508 and a half, most likely we're heading to 505, 504. If we miss that, we are definitely going to be headed significantly lower down here below 500. So these are going to be some of the targets that you're going to want to watch to see how does price react right here between just right around 509.50 and 508.50. So there's about $1 range. If we get some momentum, maybe you'll get a little pop, but for me, I'm going to be looking for more downside pressure. I'm trying not to have a bias, but there's not a lot of good news in the market. Now, what could throw this is all the regional banks are going to start announcing earnings this week, as well as some of the tech companies are going to be coming up. If their earnings are stronger than anticipated, that could stabilize the market. But again, your wild card is going to be what's going on in the Middle East with a broader war, and does the U.S. now start to get involved? So always be aware of your news events, okay? So that's SPY. Again, I'm not going to give you any price targets to the upside. I think you might get a bounce, but I'd be watching to the downside. Let's go to QQQ. Kind of the same exact thing here. We're just going to stay on the 1 hour charts. And you'll see that we are yet again, same thing. We are trending down, right? We have lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. And now the lows are pretty much balancing out. So what I would be watching here for this is going to be some overall demand. And you can see that on a reoccurring basis, we have been able to find some demand down here at the 433 level. Could we get a little bit more stability right around here at, let's just say, we're going to be about 435? Yes. As you recall, markets like 435, 440, 445, 450. But I would personally be looking for more downward pressure to this 435. If we break this, same thing as with SPY. I mean, there's quite a bit of room to the downside if you really think about it. all the way down here, where again, we have found support back here in the past, but now we are into the 421, 422. Maybe you'll get a stop in between, but again, if the market is correcting and we don't see some Fed rate cuts coming, there's probably more downside risk than upside opportunity. I do want to take a look at a couple of names. So I think we might have looked at this in the past. AMD. Wow, what a hard lesson this one has been, right? A high of all the way up here almost at 230. Now we're trading at 161. The chips, NVIDIA has also been selling off. You'll note that we are, again, yet at a overall demand where we had support in the past, and we want to see if this is going to hold. So right now we're at about 160. I think we'll probably press down into the 150s. If we lose 150, we're probably, again, yet heading lower. I mean, mind you, tech has had just such a monstrous run. And my first price point would be this resistance here, and coming down to, again, 150.84. So watch how AMD reacts. Don't love this chart, needless to say. I mean, it was really 175 all the way up to this high at 227, and now we are back down here at 161. So price target to the upside, again, same exact thing. You're on a little bit of a downward trend from a trend line here on the 1 hour. So, I mean, it's not looking very optimistic. But again, you might get a bounce a little bit higher and then possibly going to push lower. The next one I want to look at is going to be Amazon. I've been watching this for the last several weeks for good reason, right? Because I said, if you were watching this, and we're going to go back now on a daily chart so that we get enough candles, you'll see that we surpassed the prior highs, right? And it did it on strength when the market was actually selling off. My guess is if we come down to a 1 hour, what's going to happen is, do we hold here? And again, if tech earnings come out strong, do they end up pushing higher? We do have some good support here on the 1 hour at 184.81. So I would be cognizant and watch where we go with that. And then you'll also see that we have some good support a little bit lower at 181.91. So these would be my zones that I would be trading. Possibly, again, if we come out with some strength on Monday, then I would play this higher. If not, let it drop below. Let it retest 184.81, 185, and then push lower down to your 182 level, 181.91. Next one I want to look at has had a tremendous amount of weakness. I think it's down 30%. Whoo, look at that chart. Lululemon. Love the pants, love the clothes, but oh my gosh, talk about expensive. And you'll see that what we are going to do is we are probably going to find some support right back here where we were finding resistance, now became support. 327, so probably I would look for some more downside pressure. This is going to be a consumer goods company, right? And what's happening is consumer debt is going higher, and people are now being more conscientious about where they're spending their money. So I would watch for a push down here to 327. We're not that far off, and then maybe a bounce higher. But this is another one, just an awful chart that gave back all of its gains when it was flying all the way up here at 515. I mean, could you imagine buying here and then just holding, thinking it's going to go higher? That's why we use options to hedge our positions. We sell out of the money calls. We buy downside puts to protect ourselves during market volatility. Okay, so I think, again, you got a little bit more pressure possibly to the downside. Next one is the airlines. So I like to say we will trade the airlines. We don't ever want to own these things. Delta really crushed earnings. I think they moved the price target by one of the analysts up to $70 a share. Okay, that's pretty aggressive. Now, this one, interestingly enough, is, if you will take a look at this, I'm just going to do a little quick trend line here, but then you'll also see that we've really been struggling to get above this price target, right above 48 and change. But I think where the opportunity with this is, let it come down to the trend line, push higher, and then if you can get above the 48, moving back into these prior market pivot highs, 49, and then going all the way up to $50. So this one would be one that I would consider for a long. Travel spending has been robust. They're increasing their routes. They're doing a lot more global travel. They're not as impacted by Boeing, which I'm going to take a look at Boeing next, if we could. This one has just been trashed. I mean, just week after week after week. But I do think we're getting to a point where you could probably maybe look at some leaps in Boeing. Dave Calhoun, who is the CEO of Boeing, is stepping down at the end of the year. Again, another tough one, though, right? When you're looking at this from an overall trending perspective as to where are we at. And let's see if we can just grab a trend line here. We still possibly have a little bit of room down, but I think you could probably start to go long. This one is probably getting a little bit oversold. Again, I would go back here and look at where we were at in 2020. So this isn't going to be, again, the COVID lows, at $88. Do I think we're going back there? No, that just wouldn't make any logical sense on an overall thesis. But definitely, maybe wait for a bounce on the trend line, 165, and then I think you could go long. So what are leaps? Leaps would be going out and maybe buying a couple options of the January 2025, and I would probably buy the 200s or the 220s. I'm not opposed to going that high because you can see here that, we've had a good amount of support in this 230 range to 242, where price has been able to stabilize before it pushes lower. So I would definitely maybe consider some leaps. And then by then, Calhoun's going to be gone. They'll have named a new president and CEO. And again, news catalysts drive stocks, right? This one also might be one if you want to take a long equity play. I think there is, still going to be some downside risk, right? Probably back to this level somewhere right in here at 124. I mean, that's still quite a drop. It's 20% lower. But Boeing has a huge revenue stream just coming from the military, right? So forget about the planes that they're selling to the airlines. Look at their military contracts. What's happening today in the global economy? Well, there's war. So if there's war, that's why all of the defensive stocks should be flying higher. The one company that will get tapped on the shoulder because they're going to need more bombers out there is going to be Boeing, right? The supersized jets. And let's go ahead and take a look at one more. I want to look at Starbucks. This one, again, is just, wow. I talked about this, I don't know, maybe it's been about 3 months now, where this one has been dramatically really struggling with the price of coffee, right? So this is why you want to pay attention to what's going on in other parts of the country with commodities. So again, let's do the example very, very simple. Let's just go ahead and take a trend line. Yep, not the one I wanted. We got a pivot low there, so we'll keep that. But I'm just going to take the trend line and we're going to move it across. So here we go. We're right on trend. So if this can hold, today is just not going to be my day for charting. If this can hold, I think you can definitely play a bounce higher. If we break, then I would go short. You'll also see that we're sitting right here pretty much close to support, right in this 84 range. If we break this, then I would play for a low back into the 70s. Definitely. I think you could definitely get some downside push if we break the trend line. If we hold it, maybe a bounce, and then again, let it bounce, break, retest, come down lower. But Starbucks isn't looking that hot. It's a struggler right now, right? And the last one I want to look at is going to be Nike. Again, I'm sticking with a lot of the consumer names, right? Amazon, Delta, Lulu, Nike, Starbucks. Same exact thing, guys. The dollar is going higher. So what happens with the dollar index when it gains strength? Overseas customers' buying power goes down. Do I think that the dollar is going to be dropping anytime soon? Probably not. So for Nike, right now we're at about $92. I think we're definitely going to be pushing lower, probably back down to this pivot here at 81 and change. You'll see right now we're kind of holding this pivot zone as the market closed, right around between 88. We got a little bounce to 92. I'd be playing this to the downside. I think the dollar was up to 107 when I last looked at it. And unless it's going to get down to, parity at 100 or lower, these huge exporters that drive so much growth from Europe and China are just going to struggle, right? So again, being cognizant what's going on not only in the commodity market, what's going on with the US dollar, and then also paying attention to the VIX, which is volatility that is screaming higher. So from all intents and purposes, I can't be very bullish on the market. Definitely leaning bearish sentiment. So with that, I know we covered more than I normally do, but I hope you all have a fantastic week. And don't forget to pay your taxes. They're due on April 15th. And hopefully Uncle Sam wasn't too hard on you this year. But if he was, then all that means is you made a killing in trading, and there could be worse things in life. So with that, always let me know how I can help, and have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.